the same page and have confidence that the rationale for the investment, the ongoing funding is clear, and everybody understands why the pilot academy is there, what its targets are, and that councillors and the community can have confidence that it's the right thing to do to continue to support the pilot academy on an ongoing basis. So we're expecting and we need to see progression with those students coming back, and that would be, from our perspective, that would be a condition for continuing to fund and continuing to recommend that council and therefore ratepayers fund both the operating and the capital that's required for the pilot academy. But it was really good to have a good open conversation with the pilot academy board this morning and fill in some of the blanks, I think. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on it and report back to you. So just wanted to set that one out. And I think, yes, as noted in the report, we've got a new chief executive at Gasnet, and that's going well. And I would just like to note on the record, Holdings, big thanks to Jeff Evans for his time stepping in really competently as a safe pair of hands, and to keep Gasnet on track while it's been without a permanent chief executive. I think everybody who's had anything to do with Jeff and Gasnet over the last little while has been really confident in his calm leadership and the way he's steered the ship and kept everybody happy and confident moving forward. So yeah, big thanks to Jeff. So any questions?
Brilliant, thanks very much. And Jeff, on behalf of the committee, thank you as well for the time that you spent in that role over the last little while. Yeah, I had a couple of questions just to kick things off. So in terms of the Indigo student numbers, what's the difference between the projected and the actual at the moment? I mean, are we talking, you know, in terms of the numbers, the actual numbers?
Roughly by the end of June, they're hoping to have the numbers that were expected to arrive by January. So they're working towards having their first cohort within the next couple of months. So what that translates to is...
Sorry, you'll have to speak in the microphone, otherwise it's not online.
Sorry, I will say that again. So roughly by the end of June, they're aiming to have their first cohort of students complete, which was initially expected to arrive in January. It became clear that they wouldn't all arrive in January, including because visas were taking 8 weeks to process, but immigration has made some improvement on that. And talking to the NZICPA board in terms of the demand side from airlines for ongoing students, they're confident after that point they should continue to have a cohort per quarter. So in the July to September period, have that next cohort of roughly 40 students arrive.
Okay.
And I think it's also worth saying, in terms of the original projections under the when the paper was brought for approval for the capital envelope, our understanding from the ICPA board is that by sort of August, September, we'll be back on track to those projections.
Okay. Just one more question around the aircraft that were purchased, so the 2.8 million. Is that the full amount required to service the total expected amount of students, or that's just the first tranche?
That's just the first tranche. So our calculations show and analysis show that those aircraft should be sufficient to take us through till about October. Is that right, Charlie? And then at that point, if the projections proceed as forecast, an additional number of aircraft would be required from October, which might be somewhere sort of 7 to 12, something like that. But yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, we're okay till then.
Yeah, great. Okay, and I'll go to Andrew, followed by Peter.
Yeah, thanks team. Couple of questions. The first one was asked by Josh, but in relation to student numbers, are you satisfied that outside of the immigration issues, that other reasons why students might not turn up is plugged?
So what we've had this morning is an assurance from the ICPA board that the students that they're projecting to be here in their forecasts, that the majority of those are already in the pipeline, which they would need to be in order to be here by that time frame. So the pipeline, including immigration, our understanding is that it's around a 6-month sort of process. So obviously there's a lag, but there are a number that are in the system and in that pipeline at the moment. So the 50 or the 35 to 50 that they are expecting to land in July wouldn't necessarily land all at once. They'd all be at different stages in the pipeline because they come through individually and their visas are processed individually. But they have given us that they've provided their confidence that because of where they are in the pipeline, the forecasts are realistic. Obviously, you know, the truth is when the rubber hits the road, but they've got a strong degree of confidence given where they're in the pipeline at the moment.
So supplementary to that then, in the pipeline, so do you have confidence that outside of the immigration issues that there have been, that there are nothing else that could trip us up in regard to student numbers?
I think that there's no certainty that when somebody is at the start of the pipeline that they'll come out the end of the pipeline. Having said that, students sign up to a training agreement before they come to Wanganui and they're fully paid ahead of getting here. Yeah. So once they are at that point, which is before the end of the pipeline and before they arrive, they're fully committed earlier than the end of the pipeline, but not at the beginning, if that makes sense.
I understand that process, yeah. That's good. Okay, thank you. My second question is, given this delay, do you foresee any pressure on working capital?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Peter.
Yeah, thank you, and through the chair. It may have already been answered, but my concern is cash flow, you know, and the debtors and creditors, and you know, the creditors, are we paying on 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day, and how many are? You know, is there any delay in that?
In terms of the ICPA creditors?
Yes.
I couldn't answer that question, but my understanding is that everything is current and the cash flow is being managed. But there is obviously a working capital provision that's in place that is a substantial portion of has been drawn down in order to enable that to happen. So
a supplementary to that, if I may, is that the creditor that's sort of at most risk is probably council in terms of that funding and holdings. So if you look at the working capital, which you touched on, and the need for working capital, there's effectively 1.3 million approved of working capital for NZICPA, of which 630,000 is already used, but looking at their current operating profit for the year to date, which is negative compared to a positive forecast, the current rate at which they're going through operating capital was faster than forecast at the start of the year. So we'll know in the next few months if additional working capital is required. But for now, creditors we're not aware of any creditors not being paid.
Yeah. Can I just ask one more question then? You said just before that they pay up front, the students?
yes.
Which goes to a public trust.
Which goes to a trust public
account.
trust, yeah. So that is not available for operating or capital operating.
It is as the students train, but it's not available up front. It's drip fed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Andrew, did you have another question? Sorry. No. Okay. I wonder, Carolyn, if there are no further questions on this bit, if you could just touch on the additional recommendations. I know that we have some audited accounts that weren't ready at the November meeting.
Recording in progress.
That we need to approve here today. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of those additional recommendations and that any questions on them are clarified beforehand.
Jeff, do you want to speak to this one? Because I mean, it's been great that we've actually caught up. It's been a bit of a process. I'll let Jeff speak to it.
Thank you. This is I'm pleased to finally be able to present the annual reports for 2020, 2021 and 22. If you recall at the last meeting, we had a range of resolutions which covered off the fact that we hadn't held AGMs because we didn't have those annual reports, but there were a number of the resolutions which were held back. One of them relating to this, which was because we didn't have the annual reports. So this is really a continuation of the last meeting. The resolutions reflect adopting those 3 years, and one of the other outstanding resolutions was approving the AGM minutes of 2019, which seems a bit odd, but it was part of the entire suite of resolutions. So it's basically formally presenting to you those 3 years of annual reports and just completing off those resolutions that we'd covered off at the last meeting.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I'll ask for questions on those resolutions. Kate?
I wanted to go back to the cash flow issue.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no,
Is that
totally.
all right?
If there's more on NZICPA, that's fine.
Sorry to labour the point. What I'm hearing is that in the next couple of months, we'll know what the cash deficit might be for the year, and if further working capital is going to be required. Are you anticipating that you're going to need to come back to council for to assist NZICPA, or are you thinking that you'll be able to manage that out of your own cash flow?
At this stage, we are anticipating being able to manage it if forecast progress as forecast.
Okay, so
if
you
they
end up with
don't,
the
then
first-
we may need to come back.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm hearing correctly, if the students have, by the end of June, have reached the number that you anticipated at the beginning of the year, that's the forecast, isn't it?
It's more that there's a lead-in time with the conversion funnel for students, which takes 5 to 6 months. So NZICPA is starting to forecast now the numbers of students that would be arriving from July, and
quickly as we can. So happy to answer any questions at this stage. There's not a lot to report that's different from the last meeting. We've got a couple of property tenancies that are reasonably significant that we're in the early stages of talking to tenants about renewals. There's some condition issues that we need to deal with in the property, but that's more business as usual. So happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. I'll throw it open to councillors for questions, and I'll start with Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. The public will be pretty interested to hear how the finances are going on this project, and we are in public, so I'm surprised we haven't got a more elaborate financial report. So, what's the intention to bring to this committee the financial position of both the budget for the project and the operating of the port?
Happy to bring both to this meeting in terms of the performance against budget for the Puaha project and for the operations of the port. Happy to do that. That's not something that we've included this time, but if councillors require that, we will put that in for you.
Okay, so has the business across the wharf been maintained in the last 12 months?
Yes, it has. We're working with the shipping company. There's some outstanding arrears, but we're working and have arrangements to clear those. We've got it's very much a bit piecemeal in terms of stuff that comes in, but we're still seeing regular shipments across the port. And it's a sort of 2-weekly service, so we're looking to see what else we can do to bolster activity across the port, but that's still in progress.
Just a final question, Judge. So, have you reached out to other logistics organisations and shipping companies?
In early stage. Phil, you've had a chat to a few, so...
Yeah. So, Rob, yes, the conversations continue with those parties that have, over the years, been involved with our wider stakeholder potential conversations over use of wharves. We are a good 16 months away from Wharf 2 being complete, so the reality is that those conversations will continue over that period. Wharf 1, as Mark's indicated, we've obviously got the shipping entity coming in there regularly, and for those parties that run coastal shipping in New Zealand, particularly Move Logistics, and we've had them in town alongside Wanganui and Partners to work through what future services, may be able to be incorporated into their service. You should be clear that the Wharf 2 procurement includes opportunities for different designs in Wharf 2 to accommodate different coastal trading vessels such as roll-on, roll-off, and the board's being very careful to make sure that we allow those opportunities to be available to the port in the future. I did read today's announcement in the paper with government cutting coastal shipping support, but I don't think that necessarily needs to impact upon our service. However, as you may know, and I think at least I've reported it, that both of those companies that are likely operators around the coast were recipients of government funds to enable their coastal shipping services to be bolstered and improved. The shipping company that Mark has mentioned did acquire a second ship during that procurement and transport agency-led initiative approximately 18 months ago, and that is something that this port is working through with our navigation and coastal expert to see if that vessel could come. So, you can be assured that the port is very focused on the future and very focused on making sure that those opportunities are available should those services wish to call on the port.
Thank you.
Rob, I'll go to Helen next.
Thank you for the report. In terms of the maritime safety review, does that include swimming at the ramp area, which I understand is happening?
Yes, it's not part of that review, but it's something that we're very conscious of. Obviously, having children diving off dilapidated wharfs and swimming around the boat ramp is problematic. We have a scheme to provide, in conversation with council, a bombing platform that takes them away from the operational area. It's very hard to keep children out of the water, and the only way you can do that successfully is provide them somewhere else to go that is more fun than where they jump in now. So that's the intent, and at the moment we're just doing the best to keep it as safe as we can.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Yes, it goes on to a question that was asked around further coastal shipping, I guess, into the port, and I envisage a busy port down the track in regard to activity goes. So my question is, has there been, it's sort of related to this project, so I could be off topic here, but has there been any interest in others pursuing either, I guess, I'm looking at a marine precinct. I've envisaged seeing a marine precinct there. Has there been any interest from those of the marine business that are looking to position themselves in Whanganui?
Not at this stage, but I mean, once QS can pull boats out of the water, I think you will see more activity in that sort of small medium boat maintenance area, and you'll see businesses potentially become involved in that. I mean, I can give you an example. Is the fishing fleet at Kawhia, they go to Napier to pull their boats out of the water. They steam all the way around, or they go to Nelson because there's nowhere close enough for them to pull their boats out of the water. So it will offer those sort of opportunities. And once we've got Wharf 2 underway, we'll be really pushing that sort of aspect of it.
Charlotte.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. I'd like a little bit of elaboration on the river navigation, so the newly discovered responsibilities. Is there a likely way forward to satisfy your concerns around this? And
yeah, well, it's a conversation with Councillor David. I've had a quick chat to, but we are responsible, as it turns out, for river navigation.
yeah, how far up?
How far up is it, Phil? It's about...
Yeah, it's the entirety, and I can clarify this a little bit because it is a complex area, but council is responsible, but council contracted that responsibility to the port company as part of the establishment of this project and the special purpose vehicle being the Whanganui Port Limited Partnership. So it's that conversation that Mark and the directors have elected to take up with David, because on the face of it, navigation for the lower area around the port wharves seems logical that the port would take responsibility for that. But probably what was not understood fully is the nature of the extent of that navigation and other responsibilities, which I understand travels up to the extent of this, potentially the salt wedge, which I understand is about 15 kilometres, give or take. So it's a significant area, and it's an area that the independent directors of the port are unlikely to, be able to actually accept as a responsibility. So it's no doubt that was probably the lawyer's strike of a pen in the agreement, and it seemed very logical, but probably didn't understand the extent.
Okay, thank you for that.
I'll go to Peter next.
My question also revolves around safety, and that is, if you build this platform for the bombing, are you going to supply a lifeguard for it? Because now you may be responsible for those children.
It's not our intention to provide the bombing platform for
jump off this thing.
For the kids. It's something that we will be asking council to provide, rather than for us to provide it. And whether there's a lifeguard, I'm unsure. I doubt it. There's a bombing platform at Wellington, for example, that was put in for exactly the same purpose, and there's no lifeguard there either. It's just to get kids away from the dangerous areas. In Wellington's case, it was opportune straight after the board meeting that a young man was killed jumping off the Hikatea, which is the mobile crane, which is exactly what the bombing platform was designed to avoid. Unfortunately, the bombing platform in Wellington wasn't the highest object that he could jump off, but that's the intent.
Can I then ask from the CEO, is our liability then, if we do approve a platform, where does the liability lie for its safety?
Through you, Chair, I'm not going to answer that straight away. I'm going to just take that away and make sure I give you a well-considered response. But as Mark has said, it's not without precedent for these things to exist at other ports without lifeguards. But I'll come back to you once I've had time just to double-check a few things.
Thank you.
Go to Charlie next.
Yep, thank you. Mark, in regard to that navigation issue, if the directors on the board don't take responsibility for it, if they refuse to take responsibility for it, can you do that?
Well, no, but we haven't. I mean, there's two parts to this. One is we haven't got the expertise to take on control of small boats in the river. That's not really our purpose. And we can't stop them, but we are responsible for them. So there needs to be a process either between Horizons, the Whanganui Council, and ourselves to get this resolved. But it's not something that the directors really want to take the liability for. If there's two boats crash halfway, 15k up the river, and someone gets killed, I don't want to be held criminally liable for that. Which, under the current health and safety regulations, I probably would be.
That's crazy. So you obviously looked into it, but wouldn't it come under the jurisdiction of Maritime New Zealand, I would have thought?
Yeah, been in those debates before, probably. Health and safety at the water's edge is quite complex, because as soon as you're over the water, it goes from work safe to maritime safety. So you're probably right, could be maritime safety. It's something that we'll have a look at with council.
Sure you will. Good luck with it.
Thanks, Charlie. I'll just get David to make a comment on this particular part of the report.
Through you, Chair, maybe just to wrap this line of questioning up a little bit, is clearly we've discovered a bit of an anomaly that we all agree was probably never the original intent when the port company was set up. We need to work through a process and consider who is the best party to manage that. But I think we're all in agreement in principle that it's way outside the scope of what we would ever want the port company to be involved in, and wouldn't want to be adding that liability to the directors either. Whether it lands with us or the regional council or somebody else, we'll need to work through. It does overlap quite considerably, though, with some of the work that's already in progress that Lance has been involved with, our Deputy CE, with Ngā Tangata Taiki, looking at the water safety plan for the whole hour. So there's a conversation to be had around how does this fit in with that, and a bit of a tidy up to do. We've got a process to work through. We've already started the conversation, but there's probably not a lot more we can do or say to you today about that. So watch this space.
Great, thanks, David. So I'll ask the remaining elected members to park that issue for now, but the remainder of the report, I'll invite questions on. So hold on, Rob, I'll go to Ross first because he hasn't asked any questions yet, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you. I'm trying to put this into a tight question. The dredge.
Yep.
Could you explain what happened to the dredge? Is that the dredge? Because there's a reference to new dredging equipment is to be trialled pre-procurement for proof of technology, etc., etc. It's a very high-level statement. Could you explain what's going on with the dredge? And the question is, clearly it's being replaced. Where does the cost of new dredging equipment come into the costs of the port?
That's in the budget for the Te Puaha project.
Yes.
So the existing dredge is not fit for purpose. I mean, I think that's fairly clear.
Little one, yeah.
It's a little one. It's recently had a hole in the bottom, and a cork put in it. But part of the ongoing redevelopment project is the procurement of a dredge. I think if Phil, if you can give us a background on
Sure.
that.
So Ross Mark has correctly outlined that Te Puaha has a budget for acquiring a dredge. It was very clear in the proposal to Kānoa that this port was well suited and needed a dredge that was home, and it stayed in the port. As you know, as Mark suggested, the existing pieces of plant have been used to date, which is an excavator. The port company acquired the excavator that's on that barge today pre-Christmas to be economic with the previous hireage. The excavator has never been owned by the port and has been hired from local companies, so the port made a very deliberate decision to be economic with that. What Mark has alluded to in his report is that the style of dredging, using an excavator to dig buckets of sediment out and return that to the awa, is not seen as the future technology. What you'll see in the next week or so is public commentary about the trial that will get underway probably on Thursday. The equipment is in town. It's been shipped to town from an Italian company, and we will trial this. Not technically this company's technology we're not trialing, we're technically trialing the opportunity for cutting the material, sucking that material and discharging it again. So that's often known as cutter suction. And so the dredging pump that's been installed on the same excavator will run the trials for us. We want to be sure that the proof of concept in this more modern or more opportune means of dredging the port regularly works with the type of material that is coming down your awa and has settled. We've got the added complication that we've got probably 25 years worth of material that's there now, so that material will be quite different than what will arrive in the port over future years after we're back on top of the dredging. So after the trial and after we're clear in the likely success of our consent, which will be lodged within the next, during the month of March, we will start the procurement for that future piece of equipment. As Mark suggested, it's unlikely to be the very same yellow excavator in the barge that's there today. It will be purpose built. It will be likely imported because the technology in this space is offshore companies, and that will be delivered in the period following the procurement process.
Second part. Dollar question. Do you have a initial ballpark figure of what that might cost?
Ross, because this is a public meeting, we won't ever, in the board's view, release procurement estimates for particular portions of this project, but it is a significant budget. and I'm happy to take that offline with you.
Okay.
Thanks, Ross, and I'll go to Rob for the final question
Thank you.
before we pass the resolutions.
Yeah, Mark, we have the Te Puaha board operating alongside your board. So what sort of interaction are you having now with the Te Puaha board?
So Phil reports from them to us. So it's Te Puaha's it's probably better if you explain it, Phil. It's a collective that we get recommendations from, and then we make decisions on procurement and costing. So, Phil?
Yes, Rob, there's probably two levels of representation. The first is the governance level of Te Puaha, which has David and his equivalent at Horizons and representatives from the tangatiaki there. So that's considered the governance level board. That board meets from time to time. As it happens, there's the next meeting on Thursday. Below that group is the hapu grouping, Te Matapuo, that we spend time together as a project partner, guiding and seeking the abundance outcomes. And you're very aware of your council's commitment to that community-led initiative. And because we're in the awa, that leadership is coming from those 5 hapu members. They play a big part of this project, and hence it's important because, yes, we are working inside those values of Te Awa Tupō. So very much so, spend considerable time, and it is with their processes and our joint work together that we will be in a position such as to lodge this long-term dredging application this month because of that work we do together.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Mark, and thank you, Phil, for being here to present this report. So I'm going to ask for a mover that we accept the port report. I'll take Pete for that one, and a second, Rob, and I'll invite speakers to make any comments. Rob.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. And I just want to mention how I guess I'm a bit disappointed that there's not more financial information available in this report. We have an operations and performance committee where we are reported to with the other major project, the Sargent Gallery, and we were informed that your board would be reporting on the financial aspects direct to the CCO committee. This is a really important issue, because here we went out to the public and told the public that the ratepayer commitment was going to be 12.5 million. And we all know what happened. And I accept the reasons for it. There's good reasons for it. But it's now, I think, circa 26 million ratepayer contribution. So this is putting a pressure on to make sure that we're working within that budget. And simply, we need the information forward to a meeting such as this.
Yeah, happy to do so, as long as it's
Mark, I'll ask that you comment at the end of the debate,
Sure.
if that's okay. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No? Okay. Well, we'll pass the resolution, and then I'll allow you to make a comment. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Over to you, Mark.
Rob, happy to do that, as long as it's commercial in confidence. We wouldn't want to be reporting in open public forum, but certainly in commercial in confidence, happy to provide regular updates on how we're going.
Awesome. Thanks very much, and again, appreciate you both being here, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we're moving on to item 5.1. Again, this is the item that was scheduled to be at the start of the meeting, the Wanganui Partners Activity Report from November through to February. Gail and Jonathan, I'll invite you up to present the activity report.
Good afternoon, councillors, Your Worship. As the Chair of Wanganui Partners, it's my pleasure to report the quarterly activity report to Council based on our statement of intent and our requirements to give you a quarterly update on the progress of the operations and activities. I assume that you all have read the report. I'm going to pass over to Jonathan to give you some highlights or bring out some highlights and to add any other highlights that you may find to support the report. And so over to Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail, and kia ora everyone. Good to see everyone again, and good to be here. Just want to lift out a few key points from the report. Firstly, an economic overview, which comes at the start of our paper. Economic indicators for 2023 were recently released. And while unable to keep pace with record figures for Wanganui in 2022, this now points to a full decade of strong economic growth locally. And that contrasts markedly to the previous decade. So I think everyone around the table should feel incredibly proud and happy with where the economy is at and how it has got through some difficult times recently, particularly in the COVID period. Since 2014, Wanganui's GDP has grown by 25.5%, and 2,749 filled jobs have been added to the economy. We provide a couple of graphs here that show you that comparisons to New Zealand have become more favourable during this time and have often beat other provincial centres. We should be incredibly proud of where we're at as a district. More recently, we've had consumer spend data released for January, and it shows continued positive trends in Wanganui, and they're outperforming the country as a whole and the broader Manawatu-Wanganui region. In January, consumer spend was up by 7.6%. This compares to the broader region, 4.8% up, and New Zealand 3.7% up. I would add that these are not adjusted for inflation, but inflation is currently much lower than 7.6%, so it represents positive performance. Quite notably, in terms of the data that we received, the lower CBD, or Main Street, as you may know, area, saw a 17% increase versus the same period last year in January. So it's really good news for our retailers in that area, and you may take some assumptions from this in terms of the events that we've had going on during the period, providing a positive impact, although we're analysing that in more detail at the moment. We've seen double-digit consumer spend growth from a range of areas, but it includes Auckland and overseas. And we've also seen Wanganui residents spend an increase of 6.3%, and in contrast, Wanganui residents' spend has dropped in Palmerston North by 9.5%. So we can see visitors are coming, they're spending their money, and also there's a positive story in terms of how locals are determining to spend their money within Wanganui itself. Focusing on the team and our work, as Gail touched on, we've got a substantial work plan for 23-24 financial year, and it continues to be progressed at pace. Some key highlights for you. We were pleased to present before Christmas the progression in terms of the UNESCO City Design work, and particularly the tohu, or logo, involved in that. And we can build on that session that we had with you in December to say that this is set to be released this month. And obviously you've had visibility of the brand, the look and feel, and I think we're looking in a really good place as far as that's concerned. We've had close interaction, particularly with iwi, but also the local community and business community in this, and so we're now set to get into the launch phase of the work. An update from November's meeting that we had with you, our delegation to Asia that went over in late 2023. We continue to see enrolling students coming through for next year and beyond, and the current economic value is getting up towards $500,000 to Wanganui. We've also been focusing on a number of initiatives to help businesses adapt to Industry 4.0. We've really seen enhanced effort and outcomes in terms of our regional business partners work that's going on and the work that's going on there. And we've been putting significant effort into focusing on areas of economic transformation for Wanganui. An example is that we have been taking very close look at and engaging with the partners who are involved in offshore wind opportunities off the coast of South Taranaki and looking at Whanganui potentially being a base for elements of that work. There are a number of different organisations looking at that opportunity, and we've engaged with 2 of those parties. Just a note now also in terms of the eyesight. So I wanted to highlight that we've picked up a number of positive reviews, 5-star customer reviews through Google. 5 is the maximum, in case anyone's wondering. Our all-time Google review rating is good at 4.5, but we've seen quite a strong number of good ratings in recent days and weeks, and that really reflects the strong level of service, the good experience that's provided by our team down at the eyesight. Finally, I would say that hopefully what comes through in the report in the greater detail is that the work of the team continues to be strong, fantastic outcomes. We've got a motivated, talented group of people that I'm proud to lead, and also would like to reflect the support from the board is also incredibly important to us. So thank you for your support, and we continue to work on delivering outcomes for the district and yourselves. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thank you, Gail, also. I've got a couple of questions just to kick things off. The first one is around the impact indicators. You mentioned in there that that's based on a survey that's done on a voluntary basis. So the questions in that survey, presumably they directly correspond with each of the indicators?
Yes, so as per, we had a workshop on the statement of intent, I think, last June, and we did talk about that everyone's going to have to take a bit of a leap of faith here, and that it's not us saying, oh, we've done X, Y, Z. It's actually that the user, as it were, is opting in to filling in the survey, and we take the results directly from that. So, and as per the report, happy to share more granularity in terms of that data. So we know we haven't got the full population, as it were, but yes, that's exactly how it works in terms of the survey being distributed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Second question is around the UNESCO City of Design brand launch. What plans have you got in place for that program? Is there a sort of a calendar of events, or is it purely a marketing launch?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is provide that to you after the meeting. There's a couple of events coming up later on in March, but we'll build on the presentation we shared in December just to give you a bit more detail on how we're engaging with the business community and others in that. So yeah, take that away.
Brilliant, thank you, and I'll pass it over to Andrew.
Oh, great, welcome, team. A couple of questions. First one is around international students. I can see us in the future across the board, whether you think about the flight school or what is currently Te Pukenga, etc., the opportunity for international students. So how are we translating the visits to our delegations overseas with getting numbers on the ground here? Probably best comparison is pre-COVID. Are we tracking okay?
So with the, I think it's in the report from November, with the schools that we engaged with the Asia trip, they previously had Fs, equivalent full-time students numbers of just over 100. And as of a couple of years ago, that figure was at 9. So we're building that back up. The target within this SOI year was a direct enrolment of 16 Fs as a result of the trip. What we've started to do is actually translate it to the economic value. So per student, the value is $40,000 to the economy. So obviously you can sort of start to work out the sums. I would say that is one full year, full-time student. So we do have elements of students coming here for a term or different elements. So I think what would be really valuable in the planning from now into 2027 or other timeframes is for us to revise the targets and look at obviously getting back to that 100 or so level, but going beyond that, wrapping in the whole population, talking about the pilot academy, etc., rather than this has been, I guess, the start of the process, the first phase to building that back up. But we definitely see there being a huge economic value and benefit to delivering that work, and there's been a really strong return on investment on the trip that was in late last year. Yeah.
Great. So hence my question, because of the opportunity that you've highlighted well.
Yeah.
So are you able to bring an analysis or some kind of report on that to the next?
Yep. Yeah, we could do. Yep, that certainly could be something we could progress. Yep. Yep.
Second question is, I'm just going into the detail of the report here, is around the Māori business economy. I don't see reference there to Te Mana Atatu. Is that, I'm not sure, how does the relationship with them work with Wanganui Partners?
We've got a really good working relationship with Te Mana Atatu. Just quick examples is that we're a major supporter of their business awards, for example. We have got a person contracted to deliver against this work, which is the first time we've had someone dedicated to focusing on this. And I've been really clear in my guidance to that person in leading this work that it's delivery on behalf of the entire district, on behalf of Wanganui. So they spend actually minimal time within our office. They're probably working most closely with Te Mana Atatu out of all organisations within Wanganui. So that person is really engaging quite strongly with Te Mana Atatu, and while they may not be specifically mentioned in here, as an example, the Amotai Meet the Buyers event, which was held on August the 31st, was very much Te Mana Atatu and Wanganui and Partners bringing this to the community. So we haven't sort of made that explicit in here, but we've worked with Te Mana Atatu very closely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll go to Michael next, who's joining us online.
Yeah, Jonathan. Hey, with regards to the jobs field, do you have the data in terms of the distribution across the number of wage sectors, i.e. those above $100,000, for instance? So I'd be very interested in that.
We could look for that from memory, how it's categorised is in terms of skilled. So there's highly skilled, skilled, lower skilled. Don't like that terminology, but I think that's how the data provider uses it. Don't have the breakdown from that perspective, but we could see if there was something available out there.
Yeah, anything you got would be great. Thank you.
I mean, we obviously have the average income and the average household income, which you can sort of extrapolate and work out some broad averages and figures from there as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, I'll go to Rob, followed by Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Just a couple of things, Jonathan. I noticed there's mention in here of the Coastal Art Trail.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that's a Taranaki initiative.
No. So there is what's called an International Marketing Alliance, which is something across the entire country, but Taranaki, Wanganui and Manawatu is this broader regions alliance, if you like. And so actually Wanganui and Partners, I know it's been a project that's been sort of, the concept has been there for some time. Wanganui and Partners drove that working alongside Venture Taranaki up in Taranaki and Central Economic Development Agency from Palms North Manawatu. So it is a customer-facing proposition where all three EDAs have worked together to present something out to the market, and is an experience designed to, doesn't matter if you start in New Plymouth or Palmerston or Wanganui, it's an experience all around this whole region. So yes, it is something, if you're in Taranaki, it should be visible, you should see it, but also ourselves and CEDA and Manawatu have worked collectively on the project. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And the eyesight, I'd said there's pretty large numbers of people been visiting there in the last, especially over this summer period, a couple of thousand in a month. So let's imagine that we didn't have an eyesight, and those people, what are they going in there primarily to access, those 2,000 people?
I think, well, a whole range of information, but I think, yes, information is readily available on the internet, but there's certain types of people that they're really looking for expert advice and the real down low, if you like, on what to do when you're here. So broadly speaking, there's about 37% of the people that engage with our team are from overseas, and they're looking for that deeper detail, that recommendation as to what to do, and our team give them great advice and give them experiences based on what the people are asking. There is also an important element in terms of the local community service that the eyesight does provide, which is just general information, which we've never had the intention to monetize, if you like, but it's got a value for the community, quite obviously. So that's around about similar figure in terms of the number of people engaging with the team down there. So quite different needs, but the team are always adding value and giving people a good service, and that's been reflected recently in the reviews. So it's great to see.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Charlie.
Thanks, Jonathan. You mentioned the flight school earlier. Could you be more specific in what way have you had any role in recruiting students for it?
Nothing this year. So our work with the Asia trip that's mentioned has been very much focused on secondary schools. But I think, as we were sort of touching on just before, there's definitely an opportunity to present the whole. I mean, this was our intention with the trip, present Wanganui. We had lots of city design related conversations as well, but let's look at this as a whole, secondary, tertiary, and provide one Wanganui package would give us most bang for buck. And so, yeah, it's not been something that every single institution has been involved in to date, but I think the bigger opportunity would say it should be, and it can be, yeah.
Kate.
Thank you. Thanks. Just one small question, and it may be that you can't answer it right now, Jonathan. And it's in relation to the release of the tohu for the UNESCO City of Design and that whole design process, which is in your report about how it's rolling out. I was at a meeting recently, and there was a discussion around how it's going to be decided about who can use the branding and the tohu, about, who is Wanganui, that sort of thing. So it may not be something that you can sort of talk to right now, but I'd be really interested in understanding the progress around that piece of work.
Yeah, I think that's been a really key point in terms of, obviously we've talked about this project for some time, but a key thing has been around it should be inclusive, it should be for everyone, it should be for all of Wanganui, but in reality, what does that exactly mean? And this is where, to cover the question, answer it as best as I can, we've done a lot of work working with representatives from Taumapoko and Tupō, Rauri Tinaro and Cecilia Kumroa in particular, but not exclusive to them. And one of the key points that, again, this is how we do things. We support and enable what other people are wanting to deliver. So a key point of discussion was around the values. What are the values that people will adopt and agree to for using this tohu? And so we have those now through the guidance of Cecilia and Rauri. And I think that's part of the further information that we can share with you in terms of, we know there are certain businesses that it's been asked they wouldn't be able to utilise the logo. Alcohol brands, for example, has been cited as one. So that's something, guidance we've understood and respected, and as will be part of the rollout as well in terms of clear communication. But at its heart, it's all about, this is to celebrate everything that Wanganui is all about, to elevate everything that we do, and it's been great to have the engagement from particularly, not exclusively, but particularly iwi representatives. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for that.
Right, looks like we're done with questions. So I will move or ask for a mover for the recommendation. Kate will move and can have a seconder. Rob will second. And I'll invite comments if anyone's got anything to add. No? If not, then thank you both for all your work. Thanks for being here today and presenting. Oh, Michael, yep, I'll just finish off and then I'll come to you, Michael. And yeah, just really looking forward in particular to the launch of the UNESCO City of Design branding. I know it's something that's really kind of, it's running through a lot of what Wanganui does already, I think, since it was launched, and it'll be good to see a more proactive acknowledgement of that branding and that designation out in the public shortly. So thank you. Michael, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to congratulate on another superb report. And one thing I want to put really clearly is the changes that are happening nationwide and globally. So nationwide, in the December report of our import and export, we're now importing 5 billion more than we're exporting. So wages will be decreasing nationwide relative to inflation. Interest rates will be going up. Stagflation is here. So having a report such as this shows us that we're actively making steps in the right direction. We had a very low base. Wanganui was doing very badly 10 years ago, and we are exceedingly going up, which is nice. However, household income is still not catching up with pace, and individual wages nationwide is down 38%. There are 38% less high-paid jobs throughout New Zealand. How do we create new industries? I want to revert our attention to page 12 of the report. And I really want to focus this council on the idea that Wanganui has a diverse, highly skilled and high-wage workforce. I really like this outcome. I really want to focus on this outcome. So any ideas that Jonathan and the team have towards this outcome would be mightily appreciated, because as the country starts going down, we need to stand and at least stay still, if not increase our proportion of that ranking. I was sad to hear the Talent app has been decommissioned. I do know of an app very similar that will be free for Wanganui partners to use if they want to use it. I know the owner very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thanks both of you very much for being here this afternoon. All right, so we'll move into confidence, and then I might call a, what do we reckon, 5-10 minute break? Yeah, 10 minutes? Okay, so I'll ask for a mover for the motion. Jenny, and a seconder, Kate. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Cool. 10 minutes.